Hey, it's Jim, and this is level 3 of the CFA program, the topic on ethics and professional standards, and the reading on guidance for standards 1 through 7. If you think of those first 6 standards as a group, they pretty much outline, the minimal acceptable standards for behavior and decision making. What standard 7 does is it turns our attention away from us and our behavior and our decisions to the institute itself, which of course rules the CFA world. So we might as well start at the beginning, and that beginning means registering for the exam, registering for the program, becoming a candidate. And then once we pass those 3 levels of exams, then we get to use this designation. And so these are the 2 standards there, A and B, conduct as participants, and reference to the institute, the designation, and the program. You've seen these LOSs now for the 7th time. So let's go ahead and start with 7A, conduct as participants in institute programs. So there in the gray box, right out of the handbook, we must not engage in any conduct that jeopardizes CFA Institute's or the CFA designation's reputation or integrity. We've seen that word integrity. I've used that word integrity multiple times. So this is what I was saying just a second ago. What are we going to start with? We might as well start with the examination process. So it addresses the integrity of the exam process, holds its members and candidates with a high ethical criterion while participating. And look at that last bullet arrow point. CFA members are proud of their accomplishments. And of course, being proud of their accomplishments implies that, the process of earning the designation was fair and reasonable and had high levels of integrity and all those good things. Look at that last sentence. The charter must be awarded on merit. Let's start with a really good example here. We're frustrated after taking the exam. She ordered and used study material from a third-party provider. Ooh, sound familiar? Let's see. We believe the additional material focused the attention on specific topic areas that were not tested while ignoring other areas. And this is a common complaint with the third-party providers out there. You can't exactly replicate the entire CFA body of materials. So you try to pick and choose what you think is super important or most likely to show up on the exam. It's that whole thing about, breadth and depth that I do before. All right, so after the test, this is, she posts the following statement. I'm very dissatisfied with your firm's program level 2 material. I found the exam extremely difficult and myself unprepared for specific questions after using your product. Well, that sounds like it's an okay thing, right? So we're dissatisfied. So, of course, we can be dissatisfied with the apple that we buy from the local farmer. We can be dissatisfied with third-party material. The exam was extremely difficult. Well, what we know is that, the CFA program is not a bowl of cherries and chocolate strawberries, right? This is hard work. If you go to the webpage, what does the Institute say? They don't say, we think you should study for 3 to 5 hours for the exam. They tell you 300 hours. So, of course, the exam is going to be difficult. But that, of course, let me go back here. Look, proud of their accomplishments, integrity of the exam, CFA charter must be awarded on merit. Of course, we don't want to leave the exam. I'm going to say this. I say this to my students all the time. You would be totally offended if you left the exam saying, I made 100% on that exam. That was so easy. And I only studied for 22 hours, right? You don't want to have those kinds of things. All right, unprepared for specific questions. All right, that's still okay. Analysis of inventory and taxes when the exam had multiple questions without them. I will not recommend your product. So you don't have to recommend. That's not the problem. But revealing any kind of exam-specific questions, that's probably a no-no. So let's look at these possibilities here. What's most likely correct? Violated the code by purchasing third-party material. Well, that's probably not a violation. Violated the code by providing her opinion on the difficulty of exam. Well, I already addressed that. Violated the code by providing specific information on topics tested on the exam. That should make perfect sense that that's the correct answer. So here's a good slide on what would be violations. So cheating on any of the CFA examinations. You know, as a professor, I give exams all the time, and I see and try to deal with this kind of behavior all the time. I'm not quite sure how you could pull this off with the way the Institute runs the exam. But I'm certain there are people out there trying to do it. So cheating, of course, breaking rules, regulations, and testing policies of the program. When I took my exams, I took it in a big arena where they play hockey and basketball. And, you know, I don't know how many there were of us in there, maybe 1,000. Now, remember, this was over 2 decades ago. And, you know, I mean, I was, you know, nervous just like everybody else was. We were just sitting waiting for the time. And there wasn't much talking going on, but I did notice before and then even during the exam that there were people who had to get up and use the restroom. And some people were sprinting and some people were making noise. And I thought, you know what, there should be some kind of a policy about that. But I don't think that's breaking the rules. So sharing confidential program information, that makes sense, right? Improperly using the CFA designation and misrepresentation there. So that makes perfect sense. Each one of those bullet points there are really good potential exam questions. So let's work through the guidance here. These are the highlights in Standard 7A. Confidential information. So this is exactly like what we talked about in there. Remember, we had duties to the employers, duties to the clients, just duties out there. We had to preserve our clients' confidential information. Well, we need to treat the exam in the same way. So we can't reveal any question details as seen on the exam. I'll give you a quick example about what I went through on the exam. When I was preparing, I noticed that the Institute covered this particular topic from a certain angle, and it was a little bit different than the way I did it in class. And so I thought to myself, you know, I probably could figure it out when I get to the exam, but I decided to go ahead and work through the problem as the Institute presented. And, you know, both ways would have gotten to the same answer, but it was a little bit a different circuit. And so, you know, as luck would have it, you know, there was a similar question like that on the exam, and I went through it, and I was able to solve it the way the Institute did it in its materials. And so I share that with you because I want to emphasize the last part of that sentence. Until such a time the Institute decides otherwise. Now, I can imagine that if I were to reveal this exact specific question to you now that was 20 years ago, probably the Institute would be okay with that. But I'm pretty rules-based kind of a guy, so I don't want to tell you that particular information. So my advice is just, when you get to a question, just unless the question stem specifically says, the Institute allows you to talk about your exam questions after a grace period of 5 years or something like that. All right, here's some good quotes that would be violations of this standard. 10 questions, 5 questions, 30 questions, even 1 questions, few questions. How about references to a formula? Too many questions on a particular standard. Now, of course, look down at the bottom there at the key point. Does not prohibit candidates from discussing non-confidential information or curriculum material with others or in study groups while you're preparing. Yeah, the exam policies, you guys have been through this twice, right? Level 1, level 2. So you have the calculator policy. You can't bring in all different sorts of crazy personal belongings, and then the candidate's pledge. You can express opinions, right? Free to express opinions. The CFA curriculum contains too many readings. Well, I mean, that sounds like a really common complaint. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, you know what, I wish there were more readings out there, and I wish there were more topics. But, you know, what I've seen over the years is that the Institute has kind of refocused its attention in certain areas and expanded its knowledge base and its curriculum, which I think is a good thing, right? I'm all about lots and lots of breadth and lots of depth. Now, you can disagree with those specific policies, procedures, but you cannot reveal any content-specific information. So let's end this VII-A with a good question here. We just completed level 3 exam. After the exam, post a series of tweets. All right, so this is probably okay, right? CFA Institute needs to step up their game. It was a nightmare. All right, far too difficult. Well, that sounds an awful lot like what we just described. We're free to express our opinion. But then we get into trouble with this next sentence, don't we? I was also surprised to see no alternative investments. All right, there's the flashing, right? I don't think I did enough to pass. Well, you can make that comment all you want. I don't remember any of the times I left an exam where I heard someone say, "Oh, I guarantee you I passed that exam." There's always enough uncertainty surrounding some of those questions that you might think you passed, but you don't know. All right, so what was the violation? Expressing opinion, probably not. Revealing details about parts of the curriculum, so there's B, that's the correct answer. And stating that she does not expect to pass, that's okay. So part B is the correct answer. All right, how about reference to the institute, the designation, and the program, right? We're not misrepresent or overstate the meaning or implications of membership. I can't, every year I have a handful of students who are interested in the CFA program, and maybe one or two will sit for the level 1, right when they graduate in the late spring. But I can't really say to them, I'm way smarter than you are because I have passed the level 1 exam and you haven't even taken the level 1 exam. I can't really say anything like that. What I can say is that, boy, I worked really hard. The Institute, they have all these rules, and I studied and I passed the exam. And, what it did for me is that it increased my understanding, increased my breadth and depth. Yeah, so look at the gray box down there. Promote and protect the CFA as a unique brand name. Let me go give you a quick sports analogy. Those of you who watch NBA games over the years, you'll note that towards the end of the season, the home crowd will oftentimes yell out MVP, MVP for their particular player. They did it with Magic Johnson, they did it with Kobe Bryant, they did it with Joel Embiid, probably did it all the way back to Larry Bird. Maybe they did it all the way back to my father's favorite NBA player, Oscar Robertson. But I think about the CFA and the brand name is that we should all be going CFA, CFA. We're proud of our work, high level achievement, and we don't want anybody to cheapen. There's the word cheapen down there in the bottom paragraph. All right, so let's start with a question. There we go. This past weekend, we just sat for the exam. Updates the resume. All right, so this is the key element of this question. So how are we going to update the resume? Are we going to say something like, you know what? I just took level 3. I'm not sure if I passed, but I did pass level 1 and level 2. I think I'm getting smarter. I think I'm getting better at my job. All right, so let's see what we're saying. In finishing the CFA program, oh boy. I improved my skills related to research investments. I will be eligible for the CFA charter upon completion. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff that we don't like in there. What's most likely correct? All right, so we violated by claiming improved skills. Well, that's okay, right? The CFA Institute, they want us to improve our skills, and there's no shame. In fact, there's lots and lots of honor in saying that. Violated by incorrectly stating that he is eligible for the CFA charter. Well, we probably don't like that because we don't know what the results are yet. We did not violate. So there we go. B is the correct answer. Incorrectly stating that he is eligible for the charter. All right, here are the highlights here. What can we do? CFA Institute member refers to regular and affiliate members, right? Satisfied the membership requirements. So what do we have to do? Every summer, I need to complete this professional conduct statement, and then I have to pay my dues. You guys know this, right? You do this. At least I do it in the summertime. I'm guessing everybody does it in the summertime. Failure to do this results in being inactive member. That's probably a good exam question. Let's see, we can use the CFA in capital letters mark, or we can just spell it out, Chartered Financial Analyst, and I can't do anything else with it. I can't put an exclamation point at the end. You remember that great Seinfeld episode where Kramer and Jerry write a letter to their stockbroker? Exclamation point, you can't do that, right? Because the exclamation point would claim or imply superior investment performance. Yeah, this is a great exam question here. Partial designation. I can't say something like, "Oh, I'm nearly ready to hold the CFA designation," right? Until all three levels are completed, one is considered a candidate. Yeah, look at what is acceptable. I've completed level 1, or I have completed level 1 and level 2, right? No such thing as partial. Now, remember, I said this a moment ago, there's a distinction between the time you take the exam and then you receive the results. Make sure you're aware that you can't say anything until you get the actual results. Yes, remember that you can't use this as a noun. I am one of 5 CFAs in the investment department. That's not correct. I am one of 5 CFA charter holders, or as I typically say, holding the designation, CFA charter holders. All right, so what can't we do? Lowercase letters, any periods, of course, throw in the old exclamation point that I said earlier. There we go, John Flanagan, comma, CFA. Can't use it as part of the firm's name, Brighter World Charter Financial Analysts. There's the correct use if you have multiple letters after your name. I always put the PhD first because I got the PhD before I earned the charter. All right, let's end this part B with another good question. Discussing the benefits of the exam with a colleague who is considering taking part of the program, expanding her understanding of the investment field. That makes perfect sense. Demanding nature, strong ethical focus. She reveals that she has successfully completed all 3 exams in a span of 3 years. Okay. Indicates she is an active member. However, she forgot to pay her current annual member dues. Which of the following is considered a violation? All right, so expanding the understanding, that's probably okay. In a span of 3 years, that's probably okay, but she is not an active member because she forgot to pay her current annual membership fees. And that takes us through the two parts of this last standard. So here we go. I want you to turn off everything that you got in your household, and I want you to get out that handbook. I want you to spend the next, 45 minutes or so. I want you to work through those 39 questions at the end of the handbook. Now, you probably have memorized some of those answers, and that's okay. I want you to go through and read the question stem, and then if you know what the answer is, I want you to ask yourself, why is that the correct answer? Work through those. You got 39 times, and that should be really lead your way to successful, right? Potentially success on this part of the exam. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and good luck studying.